Jai Sriman Narayan. Jai Sriman Narayan. I pay my obeisances to my spiritual master, Srimad Jagat Guru Sudarshan Acharyaji Maharaj. I pay my obeisances to Lord Sri Ramanuj. I pay my obeisances to Mother Lakshmi, and I pay my obeisances to Lord Sriman Narayan. I welcome Mother Lakshmi in her form as Mother Saraswati to this, the 9th day of our Navaratri celebrations and satsang. I have stated that the world is Lord Narayan's classroom. And today we want to verify why we have stated that the world is Lord Narayan's classroom. And it would be appropriate on this day, the giver of boon or grace for man to receive knowledge is none other than Mother Saraswati herself. So her role in this world is to grace you with knowledge. What type of knowledge? Spiritual knowledge. And she graces you this knowledge through various systems. She graces you knowledge through various systems. Let us see why you need knowledge in the first place. But if you look at the population in this ward that I'm living in, I think it's what, 28? 28? Is it what, 28? You know, what, 25? I don't blame you. I was the head of this ward in 2011. So I don't blame you for forgetting, but living in this ward. And if you count all the satsangs that's taken place within this ward, I think it's quite a few, about 5, then you'll see only 10% of populace from Sanatana Dharma that live within the boundaries of this ward are attending satsang. And this is why it is necessary, and it has become necessary, to receive absolute knowledge. And in this period, especially in these 9 days, for those of you that have attended and others that have listened to this discourse from around the world, and if you take and summarize the discourses that I have given in these 9 days, then it will culminate in understanding why you need knowledge. Man, through nescience and karma, both, which is beginningless. What is nescience? Nescience. And Our ashram still didn't get its Wi-Fi yet. Sita, Natasha, Rahil, and Hemita, and Nilendri. When are you all installing the Wi-Fi in this ashram? What is Nescience? You want me to check?
It's the absence of knowledge, ignorance.
Thank you.
Especially.
Thank you. What is Nescience?
Ignorance, absence of knowledge.
So, ignorance or absence of knowledge is beginningless. What does that mean? Has no beginning. Karma is beginningless. What does that mean? Have no beginning. Am I using the term eternal for nescience, and am I using the word eternal for karma? Why am I not using the word eternal for both nescience and karma?
Because it can end.
Because it can end. It has no beginning, but it can end. So Sita, both these ingredients causes the soul, the spiritual soul, to fall into the material atmosphere. Nescience and beginningless karma is the impetus of the soul since time immemorial to fall into the material atmosphere. Within the material atmosphere itself, there are 14 dimensions. There are 14 dimensions, and the highest dimension is Brahmalok. Brahmalok. So when the soul, since time immemorial, due to its impetus attained by nescience and karma, falls into the material atmosphere, it lands first in Brahmalok. It lands first in Brahmalok, and it takes 4 types of bodies. It takes 4 types of bodies. Initially, it starts off with the body of gods. I stated the other day, there are many gods, but one Lord. Many gods, but one Lord. Sita, you are intrigued by something? Yeah, please, somebody remove it.
It's a worm. Visitor.
Okay. Chest now. When this soul falls into the material atmosphere, the first body it takes is that of a god, or takes the godly form, officially of which there are 33 million who acts as cosmic administrators, and under the heading gods who have no portfolio. Gods without portfolio, they take on godly bodies. Then the next type of body is body of man. Body of man and woman, Natasha. Man and woman, we mean man. Okay? I'm just making you happy, you second. The next type of body is bodies of animals. Bodies of animals include that reptile that you saw that was removed from the floor. It includes insects. It includes aquatic animals as well. Animal in a broad sense. And then the bodies of plants. And as the soul ingresses through the various body forms, its karma increases and its nescience increases. So Natasha, in this Kali Yuga, 155 trillion years have already passed. This is the 28th Kali Yuga. In this cycle of creation, 155 trillion years have already passed. And who knows, maybe you was a snake, a baby snake in one of these many lifetimes thrown out of our ashram. Natasha, what type of snake you think you would have been? Okay, somebody said anaconda. So as the body ingresses into these various forms, from God to man, from man to animal, from animal to plant, karma increases, nescience increases. To take you out of this cycle, I just gave you a brief timing, just in this one. Creation is eternal. Creation is eternal. It means it has always been happening. There was never a first point for creation. There was never a first point for creation, neither will there be a end point for dissolution. Because it is eternal. Eternal means in the absence of time. When you remove time, then everything is always in the moment. And that moment continues to eternity. As soon as you instill time, then there is birth, growth, and bearing of fruits and death. The time factor induces birth, growing, bearing of fruits or children, and death. And if you remove time, then you remain as you are, because that moment is sustained throughout. Time only exists in the material atmosphere. Birth, growth, old age, death. All of you understand? And this cycle continues. So from God in one lifetime, to man in another lifetime, to animal in another lifetime, to plant in another lifetime. And just in this creation, it has been continuing for 155 trillion years to date. To date. So we need to find out how to get out of this endless cycle of birth and death by one entity. By one entity. That means you died and you was born. Zillions of lifetimes in this 155 trillion. Yes. Up and down. Some of you, after this lifetime, above human is God. Rishi, what God would you like to become? We'll make you the moon god so you can produce so much juice. So if you evolve progressively, you will become a god. If you are not liberated, you will become a god, or you will remain in this human form, depending on your proportion of karma. And if you evolve in ingression, then you will become an animal. Rasha, what animal do you think you will become? Tasha doesn't want to say. Can you see the dilemma? And this is where Mother Saraswati comes in. She is now duty bound to grace you with knowledge so that you can extricate yourself from this insurmountable cycle of life and death. And how does she do that? Through absolute Vedanta. Through absolute Vedanta. And yesterday I explained that 1,000 years ago, Mother Saraswati herself verified the teachings of this institution by taking the Vedanta Sara of Lord Sri Ramanuj in a murti form that was placed in her hand, and the next morning it was found on her crown. The next morning it was found on her crown, and And Mother Saraswati herself has graced and blessed the Sri Sampradaya for expounding absolute Vedanta, because Mother Saraswati is none other than Mother Lakshmi, who is the head of this, the Sri Ramanuj Sampradaya. So I've stated that we need to corroborate this Sampradaya is not a Sampradaya where you dream a philosophy. This Sampradaya, you must find the Vedic law within the Vedic scriptures. And I stated yesterday or the day before, Sita, how many verses we have?
500,000.
Yes. Okay. And 548,200. So Sita was wrong, because according to the Srimad Bhagavatam it is 525,000. 525,000 verses, Rishi, to move from
The mind to the soul.
which is a distance of about 45 centimeters. Over 500,000 verses to be your GPS for just 45 centimeters. Okay? So the Srimad Bhagavatam corroborates my reading, okay, in Canto 12, that just over 500,000 verses is required to take you out of this cycle of God, man, animal, plant, animal, man, God. This cycle continues. Alright? Sometime animal times a billion. Alright? The smaller the lifespan, the more bodies. Every time you kill a mosquito, think how many times you were a mosquito. You understand? So this life cycle continues. And out of this system is Vedanta. What does Vedanta mean?
End of knowledge.
End of knowledge. So what I am teaching you has got nothing to do with religion. Because many religions were created after Vedanta was introduced, and Vedanta is eternal. So there was never a first time Vedanta was introduced. But all these religious systems were born on earth, made by man. We transcend. We transcend all religion. We have nothing to do with religion in any form. In any form. We are teaching spiritual science. End of knowledge. When you attain this knowledge, there is nothing more that needs to be known. After this knowledge, there is nothing that need to be known. Vedanta means end of knowledge. In which context? Srinivas, in which context does Vedanta mean end of knowledge? end of knowledge in liberating yourself from this endless cycle of birth and death. Once you attain the knowledge of why you are being born and dying continuously, there is no reason to be born again. Isn't there? And when there is no reason to be born again, is there any reason for any more knowledge? So Vedanta means end of knowledge. End of knowledge in the context to stop birth and death of yourself in various bodies. And I said we need to corroborate what we say and link. Vedanta must be linked. It must be cross-referenced, like law. When a judge gives a judgment in material law, he has to cross-reference that law that he has used in giving a specific judgment, whether it's from criminal law, international criminal law, or criminal law A, or criminal procedure, or statutory law, or constitutional law. Are there any other types of laws? Labor law, civil law, commercial law. Now you can do a BCom with law. Okay? Similarly, when you give a verdict judgment in the form of a discourse, then you must reference it with various laws from the Vedas itself. And when I have stated that the Sri Sampradaya is the absolute law, which we call Vishishtadvaita, and the Sri Sampradaya is the principal university wherein you can get all of these spiritual laws, then now I need to reference it, don't I? I need to reference it. Then I've stated in the beginning of these discourses that the Devi Mahatmyam are 700 verses, which is an extract from the Markandeya Purana. There are 18 Puranas. The Markandeya Purana is, I think, has about 5,500 verses in it. From that 5,500 verses, I stand to be corrected. 700 verses is the Devi Mahatmyam, which is used to celebrate Navaratri. Okay? So, Markandeya himself was a great sage. Markandeya himself was a very, very great sage, and I don't want to go into his history because I am not a storyteller guru. I am not a storyteller guru. I'm giving you verdict, injunctions. So Markandeya was a very great sage who appeased the Supreme Personality of Godhead to such an extent that he was allowed to live, he was allowed to be the only living entity to witness dissolution. What does dissolution mean? When these universes
Are destroyed.
involute, that means they go backward in its source, into the very first atom. It involutes into its very first atom at dissolution, and at creation it evolutes into millions and millions of atoms and elements. Many atoms are
Molecules.
molecules. Alright? So at the point of involution or dissolution, Markandeya Rishi, because his austerities and penances were so great that Lord Sriman Narayan allowed him to witness dissolution. At that point, look at the connection of Markandeya Rishi. One, he speaks this. The Purana is named after him. Purana means history. Purana means history. A Purana, a segment of history, is named after Markandeya, from which the Devi Mahatmya is extracted. Alright? That same Markandeya now is allowed by God to witness dissolution. To witness dissolution. And absolute Vedanta, when it comes to the three entities, the world, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and the material nature, absolute Vedanta states that the individual souls and material nature is an attribute of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, both in its causal state and its effected state. So when there's no creation, when there's absolutely no creation, or when we go into dissolution, then the individual souls and material nature turns from effect to cause into a subtle state and remains an attribute of the Supreme Personality of God, head. So in both states, absolute Vedanta states, in both states, in its causal state and in its effected state, individual souls and material nature remain the attribute of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, forming its body. Forming its body. So these universes is embodied by God. What does that mean? That these universes that are existing exist within the body of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and that is absolute Vedanta. And absolute Vedanta in its purest form is called Vishishtadvaita. Is called Vishishtadvaita. So I've cross-referenced, I think this is the 16th discourse that I've given, stating that Vishishtadvaita is absolute Vedanta and the world is Lord Narayan's classroom. And why are we stating that the world is Lord Narayan's classroom? Vanita Beni, have you been in a classroom? For how many years you were in the classroom? Okay. There's some people that have been a little bit more years than Vanita. If I ask you, Dana, you must say. And there's others that have been less than 12 years. When I ask you, you must say. Being less than 12 years does not mean that you are more intelligent than Vanita Beni. It means you ran away quickly. Alright? But let's see why I am stating that the world is Lord Narayan's classroom. So, Vanita Beni was detained in her classroom for how many years? 12 years. So her cycle was get up in the morning, go to school, after school come back, do homework, and that cycle continued unabated for how long? 12 years. To release herself from this cycle, she had to attain knowledge. She had to attain knowledge. When she completed her knowledge, she was released from that classroom scenario. Not a perfect example, but I want you to understand the logic of what I am trying to explain when I say that the world is Lord Narayan's classroom. So after attaining knowledge for 12 years, she had to get knowledge to liberate herself from that classroom. Similarly, you have to get knowledge to liberate yourself from this big classroom called the world. That classroom took 12 years. In this cycle, you are in this classroom already for 155 trillion years. When you attain this knowledge of Vedanta, then this will be your last year in the 155 trillion years to liberate yourself from this classroom of Lord Narayan. In my time, when I was in school, Paddy Bhai, in primary school, by mistake, we should call those standard fives sir. And only when we looked, we saw they were wearing short pants, with hairy legs and moustache. Because they couldn't liberate themselves in 7 years. Some of them were there for 9, 10. Right? You remember those times, Paddy Bhai, now? Because if you are running around, thick moustache, we didn't look at the short pants, they said, hey, when they had that gruff voice, we thought we called them sir. And some of them even met up with our sirs. We were in the same class. Okay? Because although the same knowledge was given to everyone, these were ignorant of the knowledge, like the Vedas belong to everyone who takes a human birth. The Vedas belong to everyone who takes a human birth. However, we are ignorant of that knowledge, like those sirs in inverted commas, And that is why they remain there so long. And this is why our sirs and mistresses are remaining on this earthly planet for so long. Because the knowledge is there. We are all in a classroom. We are all in a classroom. Everyone is in a classroom, and this is the classroom of Lord Sriman Narayan. Rishi Bhai, are you Rishified? Are there any questions up until this point? No questions. So we are in a classroom of Lord Sriman Narayan. He sends teachers down called gurus. It is a duty of these gurus to teach. It is the duties of the gurus to teach you so that you can leave this classroom and go back to your original state of being a spiritual entity. Of being a spiritual entity. You can accept this knowledge as absolute, or you can think that this guru needs to be shackled and imprisoned in a psychiatric ward. It's up to you. Alright? Generally, especially in Kali Yuga, 75% of humanity will be looking at the gurus as insane. Alright? Insane. From the top, how do you think the gurus are looking? Alright? So the choice is always yours. Knowledge has always been there. Vedanta is eternal. But we have to prove these injunctions. We have to prove these injunctions because in Lord Narayan's original class, some other classes have sprang up. Now we want to show that Lord Narayan's classroom, absolute Vedanta, is from the Sri Sampradaya, the Brahma Sampradaya, the Kumara Sampradaya, and the Rudra Sampradaya. We want to show this, provided that all of the Sampradaya teaches the same subject. Like in the beginning of every year in South Africa, when I was watching news, hundreds of colleges should spring up. And in around April, I should see many colleges closed down and those people arrested. Computer college, science college, you know. Colleges popping up all over, all right? And they were not registered with the Department of Education. Similarly, in Lord Narayan's classroom, there are many colleges, we call them pop-up colleges, that have popped around and influenced the Western world and the Eastern world as well, without being registered to Lord Narayan's classroom. You must be registered to Lord Narayan's classroom. If you are not affiliated to Lord Narayan's classroom, then you are in a fraudulent college. You can stay there for many, many years. You can do all your pujas, you can do all your fasting, you can do all your sacrifices. Because you're not in an authorized college, you won't get your certificate of liberation. And it is for this reason that I am placing emphasis that wherever you listen to a discourse, whenever you listen to a discourse, you must be vigilant. You must be vigilant. You must record the main points in your mind. And you must go home. And if you do not have data, go and sit at one of these Wi-Fi centers, in shopping centers, where you go sit to view the other sex. Now don't go do that. Sit and log on to that center Wi-Fi and verify what the Guru has stated, because in this day and age, whatever the Guru states can be verified on the internet, because the information is at your fingertip. You don't have to come back for the next satsang if you could not corroborate the Guru and his discourse. That's how easy it is. You don't have to go to the Himalayas and find out what's written in the Vedas. So today, I'm corroborating my discourse with my law books. And the law books are 4 Vedas, 18 Puranas, 108 Upanishads, the Ramayana and the Mahabharata. These are the law books that must be used. Not one aspect of it that fancies you. It must be cross-referenced along the board. Okay? So I am going to use now Srimad Bhagavatam, 12th canto, by Swami, by the disciples of Swami Prabhupada. Unfortunately, when this was translated, His Holiness Swami Prabhupada was already late. Alright? And let's see what information we can find on Markandeya Rishi to verify Vishishtadvaita. So when Markandeya Rishi, when the world was in a state of dissolution, he was the only living entity other than the Supreme Personality of Godhead to witness dissolution. And let's see what he saw.
Close the windows. Close the windows.
So Markandeya Rishi, in the deluge, which means that when this world was inundated with water, he saw a child floating on the water. And I'm going to start the verse from there. As Markandeya, Canto 12, Chapter 9, Text 26. Canto 12, Chapter 9, Text 26. The Srimad Bhagavatam, translated by the disciples of Swami Prabhupada. As Markandeya beheld the child, all his weariness vanished. Indeed, so great was his pleasure that the lotus of his heart, along with his lotus eyes, fully blossomed, and the hairs on his body stood on end. Confused as to the identity of the wonderful infant, the sage approached him. Just then, the child inhaled, drawing Markandeya within his body like a mosquito. There, the sage found the entire universe arrayed as it had been before its dissolution. Seeing this, Markandeya was most astonished and perplexed. Next verse. Text 28 and 29 together. The sage saw the entire universe, the sky, heavens and earth, the stars, mountains, oceans, great islands and continents, the expanses in every direction, the saintly and demoniac, living beings, the forest, countries, rivers, cities, mines, the agricultural villages and cow pastures, and the occupational and spiritual activities of the various social divisions. He also saw the basic elements of creation along with all their byproducts, as well as time itself, which regulates the progression of countless ages within the days of Brahma. In addition, he saw everything else created for the use in material life. All this he saw manifested before him as if it were real. What does this verse do? It corroborates the teachings of Vishishtadvaita as absolute. Does it not, Sita? You came back from dissolution? Are you back from dissolution? What did you see? Okay, don't tell me. I'll have endless nightmares for the rest of my life. If I even take a millisecond peek into Sita's dreams. Okay? Are there any questions? All of you understand that Vedanta, as expounded by Lord Sri Ramanuj, is absolute because it comprehends the four Vedas, the 108 Upanishads, the 6 Puranas, together with the other 12 Puranas of which the verses are in Satagun, the Mahabharata and the Ramayana. There is no contradiction. There is absolutely no contradiction in the Vishishtadvaita established or re-established by Lord Sri Ramanuj. Jai Sriman.